The average human attention span is about 40 seconds. Yet, we all know humans can binge watch Netflix for 5 hours. So what's going on there? In this video, I'm going to teach you what all good TV producers know about making people pay attention in order to ace your next conference talk. Hi, I'm Dr. Kim, and today I'm going to help you deliver a standout talk at your next conference. Whether or not scientists should be engaging is sometimes a polarizing debate among academics. Some people argue that it's not our job to entertain, that our job is simply to conduct quality, objective experiments and publish in peer-reviewed papers. And if other people want to know what we do, they can just read our papers. When I say engage, I don't mean you have to do backflips across the stage, though that would certainly be engaging. I mean you should present your research in a way that helps the audience remember who you are and what you do. Because when your fellow scientists know who you are and what you do, they're more likely to want to collaborate with you, they're more likely to remember you when opportunities arise, and they're more likely to want to offer you a job. I hate to say it, but most scientists kinda suck at giving presentations. And this is because they treat an oral presentation like a shorter verbal version of a journal article or thesis chapter. They structure their talks the same way they structure a journal article, where they start with all the details that eventually build up into the big picture. But it's generally more engaging to start with the big picture and then give us all the details. Just like how a book and a movie are different forms of communication, so are a journal article and a conference talk. Therefore, you shouldn't use the exact same methods for both. A conference talk is typically about 15 minutes, which is really a 12-minute talk and 3 minutes question time. You do not have time in those 12 minutes to go through every single detail of your study, so don't even try it. The purpose of a conference talk is to give the audience a taste test or a free sample of your work, to entice them to come and talk to you in detail later or to read your published paper. A conference talk is fundamentally an advertisement for you and your research. For a 12-minute talk, the first roughly 3 minutes should be spent showing the audience why your topic matters. Now there's a caveat here. This advice is for a larger conference. If you're going to a small workshop that's on your research subfield, then you can spend a lot less time on the introduction and more time on the methods and results. And that's because the audience is already invested in what you do. There is a simple formula for creating an introduction to a science talk, and it's called ABT, which stands for and, but, therefore. And pretty much every Hollywood movie or Netflix TV show starts this way. There was once a widowed father called Marlin. He was overprotective of his son called Nemo. And he always told Nemo not to swim away from the safety of the reef. But Nemo is defiant and swims out into open waters where he gets captured by a diver. Therefore, Marlin goes on a quest to find his son. There once was a doll called Barbie who lived in the perfect matriarch society with a dream house and perfect hair. But one day her heel touched the ground and she started having existential thoughts that dolls do not have. Therefore, she travels to the real world to find a cure. Once upon a time, there was a pandemic that ravaged humanity and turned people into zombie-like monsters. But one girl, Allie, was naturally immune to the virus. Therefore, Allie and a smuggler named Joel began a journey across post-apocalyptic America to the Center for Disease Control to use Allie to create a vaccine. How about some science examples? We know disease X kills 20 million people per year and has horrible symptoms such as A, B, C. But early treatment can cure the disease. Therefore, I am researching how we can identify disease X before symptoms start to show. We know that with climate change, more people are going to die from heat stress in the future. And we know that cities are typically hotter due to the urban heat island effect. But grassy surfaces can be about 10 degrees cooler than concrete surfaces on a hot day. Therefore, I'm researching the effects of adding green spaces to major city streets. 3 slides, 1 each for your and, but, and therefore. Add some relevant photos, newspaper headlines, quotes. Only include scientific plots if they are very easy to understand and don't require much explanation. For example, a time series showing global temperature increases is probably okay, Anything more complex than that, save for the results. And you've got yourself an engaging introduction without having to do a single backflip. The next section is the methods and results. And I want you to remember that an oral presentation is a mere taste test, a free sample of your work, not the whole thing. You do not need to cram every result into the next 9 minutes, because if you sufficiently engage the audience, they will want to come and talk to you later, to hear about all the results you left out, and to read your paper that explains everything in great detail. Choose no more than 3 key results to talk about, and no more than 3 plots. I mean it. Unless your research is about designing a new method, then your methods section should be very short, no more than 1 or 2 slides. It's a lot easier to read a method than to listen to a method. So save all the details of your method for your paper where the audience can read that for themselves. Just give the audience the absolute key information they need to be able to understand the results slides. What variables did you look at? What data sets did you use? What location are you looking at? Keep it really simple. I said no more than 3 key results and no more than 3 plots because the audience isn't going to remember much more than that. And if you have more than that many plots, then you're going to spend more time explaining what the plot actually shows than telling the audience about the results. And the audience wants to hear about the results. When you show a plot on the screen, start by explaining the plot very explicitly. Say what each axis represents. Say that if the line goes up, that means blah. If it goes down, it means blah. Be explicit about everything in your plot. I think people are dumber when they're listening to things than when they're reading things for themselves. Or at least I certainly am. When someone is explaining something to me, I'm always like, what? But if I'm reading the exact same thing, it suddenly makes perfect sense. So don't be afraid to spell out exactly what your plot is showing. And you can do this verbally or add extra labels. I really like dynamic explanations of plots. What I mean is that as you're explaining different parts of the plot, have a rectangle pop up that highlights the region that you're talking about. Have a big whopping arrow that points to the bar on your bar plot that you're talking about. It's very easy to do this on PowerPoint. Just click duplicate slide and then insert rectangle or arrow. Big text, big title, big labels, big explicit plots. And no more than 3 subplots per plot. If you're one of those people that puts 15 subplots on a single slide showing the results of every single ensemble member from a model run, this is your sign to change. Once you've gone through your excellent results, allow maybe 2 minutes to wrap everything up. Okay, so you've engaged the audience with your introduction, you've taken them on a nice adventure with your results. Now it's time to wrap everything up into a nice little package. Summarize your topic and key results in full sentences. This is the slide that the audience is going to take a photo of or scribble down notes for. You want them to be able to look back at these notes in a few weeks and still kind of remember what your talk was about. That's why I suggest using full sentences. Next, I like to have a future work or remaining questions slide. Does your research answer the key question that you highlighted at the start? If not, what doesn't it answer? This is a slide where the audience can start thinking about potential collaborations with you. Do not have a slide that says thank you or questions at the end. It's better to leave your previous slide up than just have a random slide that says one word on it that the audience already knows that you're thanking them for sitting there. The audience knows that it's question time. You don't need to tell them that. On your final slide, it's good to include your email address, your social media handle, and if you've got a published paper on the work that you're talking about, something like a QR code that takes the audience there so that when they're sitting through question time, they can scan it so that they can contact you later. The previous sections were all about engagement and making your presentation, but engaging delivery is also vital. The number one problem I see at conferences is people talking in a monotonic tone, which is fabulous for lulling people to sleep. I understand that a lot of people hate public speaking and will therefore script their entire presentation. But having a word-for-word script of your presentation is a surefire way to start talking in a monotonic robot voice. Instead of writing a full script with the exact words you want to say, just write down the key points. And then, improv the actual sentence in the moment. Now, caveat, if English is not, or whatever language you're presenting is not your first language, then you can script it. But if you're presenting in your first language, you should be able to take your key point that you're trying to say and construct all the extra bits of the sentence around it in the moment. This will help you come across a lot more natural and a lot more conversational and prevent the boring, robotic, monotone voice that people often have when they're giving presentations. The second piece of advice I want to impart when it comes to delivery is remember your punctuation. This is easy to practice. Grab a book, any book, ideally fiction, but it doesn't really matter. Not a science textbook. I have Harry Potter. I'm going to read the first paragraph and ignore the punctuation. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Cool. Now I'm going to read it again with punctuation. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Do you hear how monotonic the first reading sounded? And did you hear the commas and the full stops in the second reading? Or periods if you're American. When a lot of people present, they seem to put on this robotic voice and ignore the punctuation when they talk. So next time when you're presenting, if you could remember to do one thing, let's remember your commas and your full stops. Remember to speak with punctuation. And if you're finding that difficult, practice by reading out loud. I hope these tips have helped you. Try and implement at least one of them in your next presentation, and let me know how you go in the comments below.